serious tone. The captain's voice cracks through the intercom at 35,000 feet above the Atlantic Ocean. The words cut through the gentle hum of engines, through the quiet murmur of 300 passengers settling in for their overnight flight from New York to London. Pauses. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. If there's a combat pilot on board, please identify yourself to the flight crew immediately. The reaction is instant. Forks freeze halfway to mouths. Conversations die mid-sentence. A businessman in 12C pulls out his earbuds. A mother in 23A clutches her baby tighter. The entire cabin transforms from drowsy routine to electric tension in the span of 3 seconds. Gasp. In seat 8A, by the window, a woman doesn't even stir. Tired. She's deep in sleep, the kind that comes after weeks of insomnia, after nights spent staring at ceilings and replaying moments that won't leave her alone. Her forehead presses against the cool airplane window, and her long, light brown hair, tied in a messy high bun, has loose curls falling across her face. The green sweater she wears is 2 sizes too large, bought from a thrift store in Queens just yesterday, still carrying the faint scent of lavender from whoever owned it before. Her name is Mara Dalton, but nobody on Flight 417 knows that. Nobody knows anything about the woman in 8A except that she ordered water instead of wine, declined the meal service with a polite smile, and asked for an extra blanket before curling up against the window like she was trying to disappear. The businessman in 8B, Harrison Walsh, looks over at her with barely concealed irritation. He's been trying to work on his laptop for the past hour, reviewing merger documents for tomorrow's meeting in London, and the sleeping woman keeps shifting, her elbow occasionally brushing his armrest. Now, with the captain's announcement still echoing through the cabin, Harrison snorts derisively. Sarcastic tone. "Combat pilot?" He says it loud enough for the rows around him to hear. "On a commercial flight? In economy?" He gestures toward the sleeping woman with his gold-ringed hand. "Look at her. Probably can't even stay awake for the safety demonstration, much less fly anything." The elderly couple in 8C and 8D exchange worried glances. The woman, Dorothy, grips her husband Frank's hand. Gulps. Frank is 82, a retired accountant from Buffalo who's taking his wife to London for their 60th anniversary. He's never been comfortable flying, and the captain's announcement has turned his usual anxiety into genuine fear. "What do you think it means?" Dorothy whispers. Frank shakes his head, watching as flight attendants move through the cabin with unusual urgency. Their practiced smiles have cracked at the edges, replaced by something that looks dangerously close to panic. Julia Martinez, senior flight attendant for American Airlines with 15 years of experience, makes her way through economy class. She's handled medical emergencies, drunk passengers, even a berth at 30,000 feet, but she's never heard an announcement like this. Her training kicks in, keeping her voice steady as she approaches each row. "Excuse me, sir, do you have any aviation experience?" "Ma'am, have you or anyone you're traveling with served as a pilot? Anyone here with military flight training?" The answers are all negative. A few passengers mention having pilot licenses for small Cessnas. But when Julia asks if they have combat experience, they shake their heads. Nobody has what the captain is apparently looking for. Julia reaches row 8. Harrison Walsh is already shaking his head before she can ask. "I run a hedge fund, sweetheart, not a fighter squadron." He chuckles at his own joke, then nods toward the sleeping woman. Though maybe Sleeping Beauty here is secretly Tom Cruise. Julia ignores his sarcasm and leans across to gently touch the woman's shoulder. Ma'am, I need to speak with you." The transformation is instantaneous. The woman's eyes open, not groggily, not with the confused blink of someone pulled from deep sleep. Her captivating green eyes snap open with the kind of alertness that comes from years of training, from countless nights where the difference between life and death was measured in reaction time. Her body doesn't jerk or startle. Instead, she becomes perfectly still, assessing. "I heard the announcement," she says quietly. Her voice carries an unusual quality, calm but weighted, like still water that runs deeper than it appears. Julia's relief is palpable. Do you know anyone who might have combat pilot experience?" The woman straightens in her seat. As she does, her breathing shifts. It becomes controlled, measured, 4 counts in, 4 counts hold, 4 counts out, 4 counts hold. The pattern is so precise, so mechanical, that an elderly man 3 rows back, Master Sergeant Jake Williams, Vietnam veteran, 2 tours, stops reaching for his anxiety medication and stares. He knows that breathing pattern. He learned it himself 40 years ago in flight school. The technique they teach to fighter pilots to maintain oxygen efficiency under G-forces. But this woman, in her oversized sweater and economy seat, she's doing it unconsciously, like her body's default setting under stress. "I'm a pilot," the woman says. The words are simple, but they carry a weight that seems to press against the recycled cabin air. United States Air Force. The businessman's smirk dies on his lips. Dorothy gasps. Frank's hand tightens on his armrest. And Jake Williams, the old veteran, nods slowly to himself. He sees it now, the way she holds herself, the controlled economy of movement, the 1,000-yard stare that comes from seeing too much. Julia's entire demeanor changes. "Ma'am, would you please come with me immediately?" The woman, Mara, unbuckles her seatbelt with practiced efficiency. As she stands, Harrison Walsh gets his first real look at her. She's stunning in an understated way, with Russian features that speak of Eastern European ancestry, fair porcelain skin dotted with natural freckles across her cheeks and nose, and a high, sharp nose bridge that gives her face an aristocratic quality. But it's her bearing that catches him off guard. Despite the casual clothes, despite having just woken up, she moves with a precision that makes his earlier mockery feel foolish. "Probably just some desk jockey trying to get attention," Harrison mutters to the person across the aisle, but his voice lacks conviction now. As Mara follows Julia toward the front of the plane, every passenger they pass turns to stare. Some pull out phones, starting to record. Others whisper among themselves. A few nervous laughs ripple through the cabin, the kind of laughter that comes from not knowing whether to be relieved or more frightened. A teenage girl in 15B posts to her Instagram story, "OMG, someone on our flight might be a fighter pilot. This woman in economy just got called to the cockpit. She looks like she just rolled out of bed, but everyone's acting like she's going to save us or something." An investment banker in business class texts his wife, "Weird stuff happening on flight. Captain asking for combat pilots. Some woman from coach just walked by looking serious. We'll update." As Mara moves through the cabin, her trained eyes catalog everything. Emergency exits, 4 in economy, 2 in business, 2 in first class. Passenger count, approximately 300. Potential threats, minimal, though 2 men in business class seats 3A and 3B are acting nervous, touching their jackets repeatedly, avoiding eye contact with the flight crew. She files this information away automatically, a habit formed over years where situational awareness meant survival. Her fingers unconsciously move to her left ring finger, finding only bare skin where a wedding band used to rest. 3 years ago, she would have touched that ring for luck before every mission. Now, it's just another ghost from a life she's trying to leave behind. Julia leads her through business class. The passengers here are different from economy, more composed, but their fear is the same. A diplomat headed to an embassy meeting tomorrow morning looks up from his classified briefing papers. A pharmaceutical executive closes her laptop showing quarterly projections. They all watch the woman in the green sweater with a mixture of hope and skepticism. As they approach the reinforced cockpit door, Julia enters the security code with trembling fingers. The door clicks open, revealing a world of controlled chaos. Captain James Mitchell, 28 years with American Airlines, 15,000 flight hours under his belt, looks like he's aging a year for every minute that passes. His usually steady hands show a slight tremor as they grip the control yoke. Beside him, First Officer Carl Stevens, younger at 32 with only 6 years of commercial experience, is openly sweating, droplets running down his face despite the cool cockpit temperature. The instrument panel tells the story without words. Warning lights paint the dashboard in reds and yellows like a Christmas tree gone wrong. The autopilot indicator shows disengaged in angry red letters. The navigation screen displays coordinates that neither pilot inputted, ghost routes appearing and disappearing like someone's playing a very dangerous game with their flight computer. But it's the radar screen that makes Mara's blood run cold. There's another aircraft out there. Close. Too close. It's positioned just off their right wing, in what any military pilot would recognize as an aggressive intercept position. The blip on the radar moves with them, matching their speed, their altitude, shadowing them with the precision of a predator stalking prey. Captain Mitchell glances back at her, and Mara sees something in his eyes she's seen too many times before. The look of someone who's realized they're in over their head, but can't afford to admit it. "You're the combat pilot?" His voice is professional, but there's an undercurrent of desperation. "Yes, sir. Captain Mara Dalton, U.S. Air Force, retired." She moves closer to get a better view of the instruments, her trained eyes rapidly processing the information. "What's your situation?" Mitchell exhales sharply, the sound of a man who's been holding his breath without realizing it. "We lost autopilot 20 minutes ago. We're flying manual, but that's not the real problem." He points to the radar screen. "That appeared about 15 minutes ago. No transponder signal, no radio contact. It's been shadowing us, matching everything we do." Stevens jumps in, his voice cracking slightly. "Every time we try to adjust course, it mirrors us. When we climb, it climbs. When we descend, it descends. It's like it's hunting us." Mara studies the radar, her mind automatically calculating distances, speeds, approach angles. The positioning is textbook military. Specifically, it's Eastern Bloc training, the kind of formation flying they taught in the old Soviet Air Force, and still teach in certain parts of the world, where the Cold War never really ended. "How long until we're in range of air traffic control again?" she asks. "We're in a dead zone over the Atlantic," Mitchell replies. "Sparse radar coverage for another 40 minutes at least. Have you tried contacting them?" "Whatever that is," Stevens points at the radar blip, "it's not responding to any frequency. Military, civilian, emergency, nothing." Mara nods, processing. "Show me your navigation system." Stevens pulls up the display. The authorized flight path from New York to London shows as a clean green line, but overlaid on top of it, appearing and disappearing like a digital ghost, is another route in red. It leads away from their destination, curving south toward a remote section of the Atlantic stick where international waters meet no particular jurisdiction, where a plane could disappear and not be found for days, maybe longer. "Someone's trying to override your system remotely," Mara says. "This isn't random. This is coordinated." Mitchell's knuckles go white on the control yoke. "That's impossible. Our systems are secure. They're isolated from external access." "Nothing's impossible if someone wants it badly enough," Mara replies. "Can you show me the exterior cameras?" Mitchell nods and switches on the camera feed. The screen flickers to life, showing the dark Atlantic night, stars scattered across the sky like spilled diamonds. The running lights of their Boeing 7 illuminate small sections of the wings. And there, off the right wing, maintaining perfect formation, is the other aircraft. Mara's breath catches for just a moment. It's not a commercial plane, not even close. The sleek angular design speaks of military engineering, but not American military. The absence of any markings or identification numbers is deliberate. This is an aircraft designed to not exist, to operate in the shadows between international laws and sovereign airspace. "That's a modified Sukhoi," she says quietly. "Russian design, but upgraded. Someone's put a lot of money into making that aircraft invisible to most radar systems." Stevens stares at her. "How can you possibly know that?" "Because I've seen them before." The memory threatens to surface, sand and heat and the sound of missiles locking on, but she pushes it down. "Captain, I need to ask you something. Was there anything unusual about your passenger manifest? Any last-minute additions? Any flags from security?" Mitchell shakes his head. "Nothing that I was briefed on. Standard international flight, business travelers, tourists, a few military families heading to bases in Germany." Before Mara can respond, the intercom buzzes with urgent intensity. Julia's voice comes through, professional but strained. "Captain, we have a situation in the cabin. 2 passengers in business class, seats 3A and 3B. They're trying to access the forward service compartment. When we asked them to return to their seats, one of them said something about needing to complete the mission. Other passengers are getting scared." The pieces click together in Mara's mind like rounds sliding into a magazine. External threat, internal accomplices, coordinated timing. This isn't a hijacking in the traditional sense. This is something more personal, more targeted. "Tell the cabin crew to keep those men in their seats," Mitchell says into the intercom. "Use whatever force necessary." "Captain," Mara says, her voice steady despite the adrenaline starting to flood her system, "we need to assume this is a coordinated attack. That aircraft outside and your passengers inside, they're working together. For what? Stevens asks. What do they want? Ransom? Political statement? Mara doesn't answer immediately. Her mind is running through possibilities, but one keeps surfacing, a thought she doesn't want to acknowledge, the timing of her flight, the specific nature of the threat, the type of aircraft shadowing them. It all feels too precisely orchestrated to be random. The radio suddenly crackles to life. Static fills the cockpit, then clears, replaced by a voice speaking accented English. The accent is subtle but distinctive, Eastern European, possibly Ukrainian or Russian, with the clipped precision of military training. Flight 417, you are off course. Adjust to the coordinates being transmitted to your navigation system. Mitchell grabs the radio microphone. This is Captain Mitchell of American Airlines Flight 417. We are a civilian aircraft on a scheduled transatlantic route. Identify yourself and state your intentions. There's a pause. Then the voice returns, colder this time. Flight 417. Comply with course correction or face consequences. As if to emphasize the threat, the hostile aircraft suddenly banks hard, cutting directly across their flight path. The proximity alarms scream. The entire plane shudders from the wake turbulence. In the cabin, passengers scream. Overhead compartments pop open, sending bags tumbling into the aisles. Mitchell fights to maintain control, his years of experience the only thing keeping them stable. Stevens is frozen, his hands hovering uselessly over the controls. They're trying to force us off course, Mara says, her voice cutting through the chaos with military precision. They want us to follow their flight path to those coordinates. Isolated location, no radar coverage, no witnesses. What do we do? Stevens' voice cracks completely. We can't outrun them. We can't outmaneuver them. We're sitting ducks up here. Mara looks at the two pilots. Mitchell, experienced but out of his depth. Stevens, younger and clearly panicking. 300 passengers in the cabin behind them, trusting that the people in this cockpit will get them home safely. She thinks of the mother she passed in economy, holding her baby, the elderly couple celebrating their anniversary, the teenage girl posting on social media, thinking this is all some kind of adventure. If you were in this situation, hostile aircraft forcing your plane off course, two potential hijackers in the cabin, would you reveal your combat experience to take control, or would you stay hidden to protect your identity? Sometimes the hardest choice isn't whether to fight, but whether to let others see who you really are. Comment below with what you would do, step up and expose yourself, or stay silent and hope someone else can handle it. The weight of decision presses down on her shoulders. For 3 years, she's been running from this. From the responsibility, from the aftermath of choices that cost lives, from enemies who would love nothing more than to finish what they started in a desert and halfway around the world. She came on this flight as Mara Dalton, tired woman in 8A, trying to disappear into civilian life. But that's not who she really is. It never was. Captain Mitchell, she says, her voice carrying the authority that once commanded fighter squadrons. With your permission, I'd like to take the co-pilot seat. Stevens looks at her incredulously. You can't be serious. This is a Boeing 7, not a fighter jet. The controls are completely different. The physics, the response times, everything. The principles of flight don't change, Mara interrupts. Lift, drag, thrust, weight. The controls might be different, but physics is physics. And right now, you need someone who's dealt with hostile aircraft before. Mitchell doesn't hesitate. 28 years of flying have taught him to recognize competence when he sees it, and something in this woman's bearing, in the steady calm of her voice while alarms wail and warnings flash, tells him she might be their only chance. Stevens, give her your seat. Captain, this is insane. That's an order, First Officer. Stevens unbuckles with shaking hands and slides out of the seat. Mara takes his place, her hands finding the controls with the muscle memory of someone who's spent thousands of hours in cockpits. The yoke feels different from a fighter stick, larger, less responsive, designed for stability rather than agility. But her hands adjust automatically, feeling the aircraft's weight through the controls, understanding its capabilities and limitations through subtle feedback. She scans the instruments with practiced efficiency. Fuel, sufficient for London plus reserves. Altitude, 35,000 feet. Speed, Mach 0.84. The hostile aircraft maintains position off their right wing, close enough to be threatening, but far enough to avoid collision. For now. They expect us to panic, she tells Mitchell. They expect us to either comply immediately or try to run. Both reactions play into their hands. If we comply, we end up wherever they want us. If we run, they force us down anyway, but it looks like we were being aggressive. So, what's the third option? Mitchell asks. Mara's jaw sets with determination. We make them show their hand, force them to reveal what they really want. She adjusts her grip on the yoke. But first, we need to deal with the situation in the cabin. Those two passengers, they're the inside team. As long as they're active, we're fighting on two fronts. Mitchell keys the intercom. Julia, status on those two passengers? Julia's voice comes back, tense. They're getting aggressive. One of them just stood up and said, "We have 5 minutes to comply with their demands," or a crash in the background, sounds of struggle. "Sir, they're moving toward the cockpit." Mara's mind races. Standard hijacking protocol says never open the cockpit door. But if these men have weapons, if they start hurting passengers to force compliance, the equation changes. And something tells her these aren't standard hijackers. The coordination with the outside aircraft, the timing, the specific nature of the threat, this feels personal. The hostile aircraft makes another pass, closer this time. The plane rocks violently. In the cabin, she can hear impacts, luggage falling, people crying out. The old military part of her brain categorizes the sounds automatically. Fear, confusion, but not panic, not yet. "Captain, can you maintain control while I handle something?" Mara asks. Mitchell nods, gripping the yoke tighter. "What are you thinking?" Instead of answering, Mara reaches for the radio. She adjusts the frequency to an emergency military channel, one that most civilian pilots wouldn't even know exists. Static fills the cockpit, then clears. Any Allied military aircraft monitoring emergency frequency? This is Captain Mara Dalton, authentication code Victor 77 Whiskey 9. We have a civilian aircraft under hostile intercept, 300 souls on board, requesting immediate assistance. Grid reference. She rattles off their position in military terminology, noting Mitchell's surprised expression. For a moment, there's only static. Then a crisp British accent cuts through. "Captain Dalton, this is RAF Mount Pleasant. We're tracking you but have no assets in range. Estimated response time 40 minutes. Can you maintain position?" 40 minutes. It might as well be 40 hours. The hostile aircraft won't wait that long to make its move. "Negative, Mount Pleasant. Hostile is attempting forced course correction. Will attempt to maintain heading as long as possible." She switches back to the civilian frequency just as the hostile pilot's voice returns. But this time, it's different. The accent is the same, but there's something else there. Recognition, anticipation, like a hunter who's finally spotted familiar prey. "Captain Dalton." The name hangs in the air like a ghost. Mitchell stares at her. Stevens, still standing behind the seats, gasps audibly. "I should have known you'd be on this flight," the voice continues. 3 years, Mara. 3 years I've been waiting for this moment." Mara's blood turns to ice. She knows that voice, really knows it. Not just from intelligence briefings or combat encounters, but from a night in Yemen when everything went wrong. When the mission that was supposed to be her last turned into a nightmare that still wakes her at 3 in the morning. "Klov," she says quietly. "Victor Klov," the voice confirms. "Smiem Sabitiesko, do you?" "You remember, good. I want you to remember everything when those 300 innocent people pay for what you did." Mitchell looks at her, his expression a mixture of confusion and growing alarm. "You know this person?" Mara nods slowly. 3 years ago, I led a squadron on a classified mission. Intelligence said we were intercepting arms dealers. Turns out the intelligence was wrong. One of the dealers was Alexei Klov, Victor's younger brother. He was actually trying to broker a peace deal between rebel factions. She pauses, the weight of memory pressing down. We realized too late. Alexei's plane went down in disputed territory. No survivors. And this Victor blames you? He doesn't just blame me. He spent 3 years planning revenge. And somehow he knew I'd be on this flight. The realization hits her with the force of a physical blow. This wasn't random. He's been watching me, waiting for the right moment. The intercom crackles urgently. Julia's voice is barely controlled. "Captain, situation in the cabin is escalating. The 2 men have weapons. I don't know how they got them through security. Passengers are trying to help, but..." A crash cuts her off. Sounds of struggle. Then a different voice, male, heavily accented. "We control the cabin. You will comply with course correction in 2 minutes, or we begin eliminating passengers, starting with the children. Dorothy, the elderly woman in 8C, clutches her husband's hand as chaos erupts around them. The 2 men from business class have revealed weapons, ceramic knives that somehow pass through security. One stands at the front of economy, the other near the middle, creating a crossfire of fear. "Everyone remains seated," the first man shouts. He's tall, athletic, with the kind of build that suggests military training. "We don't want to hurt anyone, but this aircraft is changing course. Cooperate, and everyone goes home." But Harrison Walsh, the businessman from 8B who mocked Mara earlier, isn't the type to cooperate. Maybe it's ego, maybe it's the 3 whiskeys he had before takeoff, or maybe it's the sudden realization that his merger in London doesn't matter if he doesn't survive the flight. He starts to stand. Now, wait just a minute. The man moves faster than Harrison expects, crossing the distance in 2 strides. But Harrison, for all his corporate softness, played rugby at Princeton. He shifts his weight, throws a shoulder into the attacker's midsection. They crash into the seats, ceramic knife skittering across the floor. The second hijacker starts toward them, but Jake Williams, the Vietnam veteran from 3 rows back, sticks out his cane at exactly the right moment. The hijacker trips, goes down hard. A woman in 14B, who turns out to be an off-duty police officer from Chicago, jumps on him before he can recover. Within seconds, the entire economy cabin becomes a battlefield of ordinary people refusing to be victims. The mother clutching her baby passes the child to another passenger and throws a diaper bag at one hijacker's head. The teenage girl who was posting on Instagram starts live streaming, shouting, "They're trying to hijack us, but everyone's fighting back." Frank, the elderly accountant, surprises everyone including himself by grabbing the dropped ceramic knife and holding it with shaking but determined hands. "Nobody's hurting anyone on my anniversary trip," he declares, his voice stronger than it's been in years. In the cockpit, Mara hears the commotion through the door. Pride swells in her chest. These aren't soldiers, they're accountants and mothers and teenagers and retirees, but they're fighting. They're not going down without resistance. But Victor's voice cuts through her momentary hope. "Admirable, but futile. You have 1 minute to comply or I start shooting. Yes, Mara, shooting. Did you think I came to this dance with just a partner? Look at your radar. Look closer." She does, and her heart sinks. What she thought was 1 aircraft is actually 2. Flying in such tight formation they appeared as a single blip. The second one is smaller, faster, probably armed with air-to-air missiles. 30 seconds, Victor says. The passengers have subdued both hijackers, but it doesn't matter. The real threat is outside, and there's nothing 300 untrained civilians can do against military aircraft with hostile intent. Mara looks at the controls, at the radar, at Captain Mitchell's desperate face. They're out of options. Out of time. In 30 seconds, Victor will either shoot them down or force them to land wherever he's prepared. Either way, 300 people will pay for her past. Unless... Her hands tighten on the yoke as an idea forms. It's insane. It's reckless. It's the kind of thing they specifically train commercial pilots never to do. But she's not a commercial pilot. She's Captain Mara Dalton, and she's flown combat missions in situations where insane and reckless were the only options left. "Captain Mitchell," she says quietly, "I need you to trust me. What I'm about to do will seem crazy, but it might be our only chance." Mitchell looks at her, this woman who appeared from economy class, who knows hostile pilots by name, who's turned his routine flight into something out of a nightmare. "Do it," he says simply. "Stevens, sit down and buckle up. This is going to get rough." As Stevens scrambles for a jump seat, Mara keys the intercom. "This is the cockpit. All passengers and crew, secure yourselves immediately. Assume crash positions." Then she reaches for the engine controls. Her fingers hover over them for a heartbeat, knowing that what she's about to do will either save them all or doom them. There's no middle ground, no safe option, no guarantee. But that's always been true, hasn't it? Every time she climbed into a fighter jet, every mission over hostile territory, every split-second decision at Mach 2, it all came down to this same moment of choice. Victor's voice. "Time's up, Mara." She looks at the radar one more time, calculating distances, speeds, angles. The hostile aircraft are maintaining perfect formation, expecting her to comply or run, expecting a civilian aircraft to behave like civilians. They're about to learn why you never corner a combat pilot, even one trying to leave that life behind. Her hands move to the controls. In her mind, she's not in a Boeing anymore. She's back in her F-16, call sign Angel 7, the pilot who once flew through a sandstorm to extract a downed crew, who held off 6 enemy fighters while her squadron escaped, who earned her wings in blood and courage and terrible choices. "Hold on," she says, and cuts the engines. The Boeing 7 drops like a stone. The Boeing 7 plummets through the night sky. 300 passengers scream in unison as gravity releases its hold, sending anything not secured floating momentarily in the cabin. Coffee cups hover in midair. A child's toy drifts past a window. For 3 seconds that feel like 3 hours, Flight 417 falls. But Mara's hands never leave the controls. She counts in her head, 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3, then fires the engines back to full power while pulling the yoke hard. The massive aircraft groans under the stress, metal protesting against forces it was never designed to handle. G-forces slam everyone back into their seats. Overhead bins burst open, raining luggage into the aisles. In economy, Harrison Walsh grips his armrest so hard his knuckles crack. Dorothy buries her face in Frank's shoulder. The baby in 23A stops crying, shocked into silence. But the maneuver works. Victor's aircraft, expecting them to maintain altitude or climb, overshoots completely. For a precious few seconds, Mara has put the Predator behind them, reversing the tactical advantage. She immediately banks hard left, using the Boeing's massive wingspan to create wake turbulence that forces the hostile aircraft to adjust their approach. "What are you doing?" Steven shouts from the jump seat, his face pale. "Buying time," Mara replies, her voice steady despite the physical strain of controlling the aircraft through maneuvers it was never meant to perform. Victor expected a commercial pilot, someone who follows procedures, who prioritizes passenger comfort. He didn't expect a crazy person, Mitchell finishes, but there's admiration in his voice. "Someone who's played this game before," Mara corrects. She glances at the radar. The 2 hostile aircraft are regrouping, but she's disrupted their formation. They'll come back, but now they know this won't be easy. In the cabin, Julia Martinez picks herself up from where the sudden drop threw her against the bulkhead. Her uniform is disheveled, her carefully pinned hair has come loose, but her professionalism remains intact. She keys the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated with your seatbelts fastened. The turbulence may continue." Turbulence, that's one word for it. Jake Williams, the Vietnam veteran, actually laughs. He recognizes a combat maneuver when he experiences one, even in a commercial aircraft. He turns to the passengers around him. "That wasn't turbulence," he says loud enough for Rose to hear. "That was a defensive drop. Someone up there knows what they're doing." The 2 would-be hijackers are still on the floor, now zip-tied with materials from the flight crew's emergency kit. Harrison Walsh sits on one of them, his expensive suit ruined, but his pride intact. The off-duty Chicago cop, whose name turns out to be Maria Santos, maintains control of the other. Around them, passengers have formed a protective circle, ready to act if either man tries anything. The teenage girl with the phone is still live streaming. "OMG. You guys, I think our pilot just did some kind of fighter jet move. Everyone screamed, but we're okay and the bad guys are tied up and this is literally insane." Back in the cockpit, Victor's voice returns on the radio, and now there's genuine anger beneath the controlled tone. "Impressive, Mara, but you're only delaying the inevitable. You can't outfly us in that flying bus." "I don't need to outfly you," Mara responds. "I just need to stay airborne for," she glances at the clock, 32 more minutes. "The cavalry won't reach you in time." "Maybe not, but every minute we stay up here, every maneuver you have to make, broadcasts your position to more satellites, more tracking stations. You're not invisible anymore, Victor. The whole world is watching." There's a pause. Then Victor speaks again, and this time his voice carries a different quality, resignation mixed with determination. "You took everything from me, Mara. My brother was 23. He had a wife, a daughter. He was trying to make peace, and you killed him." The words hit Mara like physical blows. She remembers that night with crystal clarity. The intelligence briefing that labeled Alexei Klov as an arms dealer, the authorization for lethal force, the moment her missile locked on. It wasn't until afterward, when they analyzed the crash site, that they discovered the truth. Alexei had been carrying peace negotiation documents, not weapons, medical supplies, not ammunition. I know, she says quietly, and Mitchell glances at her in surprise. I know he was innocent. I know I was wrong. I live with it every day. Living with it isn't enough. Victor's control finally cracks. You get to walk away. You get to retire, take commercial flights, pretend to be normal, while my brother's daughter grows up without a father. What do you want, Victor? You want me dead? Fine. But these people have nothing to do with our past. They have everything to do with it. You hide among civilians. You use them as shields, just like you did in Yemen, just like you always do. The accusation stings because there's truth in it. After the Yemen mission, after the investigation that cleared her of wrongdoing but not of guilt, Mara had tried to disappear into civilian life. She had thought that by leaving the military, by giving up flying, she could somehow balance the scales. But violence has a way of following those who've dealt in it, and now 300 innocent people are caught in the crossfire of her past. Captain Mitchell reaches over and mutes the radio. Whatever happened, it's not your fault these people are in danger. Isn't it? Mara keeps her eyes on the instruments. He tracked me to this flight. He knew I'd be here. These people are leverage against me. These people are alive because you're here, Mitchell counters. Any other flight, any other situation, and Victor wins. But he made one mistake. He gave you a cockpit. The hostile aircraft make another approach, this time from below. Mara watches them rise on the radar, timing their ascent. They're being more cautious now, maintaining wider separation, learning from her earlier maneuver. They're going to try to force us down, she tells Mitchell. Box us in from below and above, leave us nowhere to go but where they want. Can you prevent it? In an F-16? Yes. In this? She shakes her head. We're flying a building with wings. We have one advantage, size. Our wake turbulence is significant enough to disrupt their formation if they get too close. But eventually, they'll figure out the safe approach angles. The radio crackles. A new voice, crisp and professional, with an American accent. Unidentified aircraft harassing American Airlines Flight 417. This is Lieutenant Colonel Samuel Roberts, United States Air Force. You are ordered to break off immediately and identify yourself. Mara's heart leaps. She recognizes that voice. Sam Roberts, her old squadron leader from Nellis. But how? We scrambled from Iceland the moment RAF Mount Pleasant relayed your authentication code, Roberts continues. ETA, your position 9 minutes. Hold on. Angel 7. Angel 7, her old call sign. Hearing it after 3 years is like touching a live wire to her past. Victor's voice cuts in. 9 minutes is too long, Colonel. This ends now. The two hostile aircraft suddenly accelerate, splitting formation. One climbs rapidly while the other dives, creating a vertical pincer. It's a classic Soviet-era tactic, designed to overwhelm a single target's ability to respond. In a fighter jet, Mara would go vertical, use superior thrust-to-weight ratio to escape the box. But the Boeing can't do that. It's like asking an elephant to perform gymnastics. All passengers brace for impact, she announces, then does the only thing she can. She banks hard, right, directly toward the climbing aircraft. It's counterintuitive, flying toward the threat instead of away, but Victor's pilot doesn't expect it. The hostile aircraft has to abort its climb to avoid collision, and suddenly Mara has both enemies on the same side of her aircraft. The maneuver costs them altitude. They drop from 35,000 to 32,000 feet in seconds. Alarms wail. Stevens is praying audibly. Mitchell is fighting to help her maintain control as the Boeing protests the abuse, but they're still flying. 7 minutes, Roberts radios. Visual contact on radar. Hold your position. 7 minutes might as well be 7 hours. Victor's aircraft regroup quickly, and this time they come in coordinated, one high and right, one low and left, making it impossible to evade both. The captain glances at his tablet, which is still somehow functioning despite the chaos. Among the emergency notifications and system warnings, an advertisement for comprehensive aviation insurance flashes briefly. The same coverage system that 3 major airlines had switched to after last year's series of incidents, providing instant support for crew decisions during crisis situations. The irony isn't lost on him. No insurance policy covers this. Mara, Victor's voice returns, I didn't want it to end like this. I wanted you to understand, to feel what I felt. But if you won't comply, The smaller aircraft suddenly accelerates, pulling ahead of them. Mara recognizes the maneuver. It's going to turn back and make a head-on pass, probably firing warning shots to force them down. Or worse. He's got weapons lock capability, she tells Mitchell quietly. If he fires, can we evade? Not in this. We're too big, too slow. She takes a breath. Captain, I need you to do exactly what I say, when I say it. Can you do that? Mitchell nods without hesitation. When I tell you, I need you to deploy the landing gear. At this altitude, at this speed, it'll tear them off. Maybe, or maybe it'll create enough drag to drop us below his firing solution. She watches the radar, calculating angles and speeds. It's going to be violent. Make sure everyone's secured. Mitchell keys the intercom. All passengers and crew, assume crash positions immediately. Secure all loose items. Flight attendants, take your seats. In the cabin, Julia helps an elderly man fasten his seatbelt tighter. Harrison Walsh actually helps the mother with the baby secure her child carrier properly. Dorothy and Frank hold hands, whispering to each other. Jake Williams grips his cane and closes his eyes, memories of another aircraft, another war, flooding back. The teenage girl stops live streaming and texts her parents. I love you. The hostile aircraft completes its turn and begins its attack run. On the radar, it's an arrow aimed directly at them, closing fast. Steady, Mara says, watching the distance close. 8 miles, 7, 6, 7. Missile lock warning, Stevens shouts as new alarms shriek. 5 miles, 4. Now, Mara commands. Mitchell slams the landing gear lever down. The massive wheels deploy into the slipstream at 500 miles per hour. The aircraft lurches like it's hit a wall. Everything not secured becomes a projectile. The sound is tremendous. Metal screaming, wind howling through the wheel wells, alarms blaring. But it works. The Boeing drops like an elevator with cut cables, falling below the hostile aircraft's approach angle. The enemy pilot, committed to his attack run, overshoots. His missiles, if he fired them, pass harmlessly overhead. Gear up! Gear up! Mara shouts, fighting to maintain control as the aircraft threatens to enter an unrecoverable stall. Mitchell reverses the lever. The landing gear, miraculously still attached despite the abuse, slowly retract. Mara pushes the nose down to regain airspeed, trading altitude for velocity. They have dropped to 28,000 feet, but they're still flying. 3 minutes, Roberts radios. We have you on visual. 2 F-16s inbound hot. For the first time since this started, Mara allows herself a moment of hope. 3 minutes. They might actually make it. Then Victor speaks again, and his voice has changed. The anger is gone, replaced by something worse, acceptance. You always were the best, Mara. That's why it had to be you. That's why I spent 3 years preparing for this moment. A pause. But I learned something from you. Sometimes the mission matters more than survival. The smaller aircraft suddenly accelerates again, but this time it's not maneuvering for attack. It's coming straight at them. No evasion, no tactics, just a straight line intercept course. He's going to ram us, Mara breathes. Mitchell stares at the radar in horror. He's insane. No, he's committed. She understands in a way the civilian pilots can't. Victor has decided that revenge matters more than his own life. It's the kind of decision she's seen before, the kind she's made herself in different circumstances. 2 minutes until the F-16s arrive, but Victor will reach them in 30 seconds. Mara's mind races through options, but they all end the same way. The Boeing can't outmaneuver a determined suicide attack. They can't outrun it. They can't outfight it. Unless... She thinks about the passengers behind her, 300 people who boarded a plane expecting nothing more dangerous than bad airline food and a crying baby. 300 people who stood up to armed hijackers, who refused to be victims, who trusted that someone would save them. 300 people who don't deserve to die for her sins. Captain Mitchell, she says quietly, take the controls. What? Take the controls. When I tell you, dive hard and turn left. She unbuckles her harness. What are you doing? Instead of answering, Mara reaches for the radio and switches to an open frequency, one that everyone, including the approaching F-16s, will hear. Victor Klav, she says, her voice carrying the weight of command she thought she'd left behind. This is Captain Mara Dalton. You want me? Fine, but let these people go. I'll give you coordinates for a remote airfield. I'll meet you there. Just you and me. No civilians. You're lying. I'm not. You know I'm not. You studied me for 3 years. You know I don't break my word. She pauses. Your brother wouldn't want this. Alexei was trying to make peace, not create more violence. Don't you dare speak his name. He had a daughter, you said. What do you think she'll remember? That her uncle killed 300 innocent people for revenge? Or that he showed mercy, like her father would have? The radio falls silent. On the radar, Victor's aircraft maintains its collision course. 20 seconds. Roberts' voice cuts in. Angel 7, we have missile lock on hostile. Permission to engage? 15 seconds. Mara closes her eyes briefly. Negative. Do not fire. There might be another way. 10 seconds. Victor, your brother saved 17 children in that peace negotiation. 17 kids who are alive because of him. There's a woman with a baby in seat 23A. Don't make her child an orphan. 5 seconds. Choose, Victor. Be the man your brother was, or be the monster you think I am. The aircraft fills their windscreen, close enough to see its navigation lights. Mitchell grips the controls, ready to dive. Stevens has his eyes closed. In the cabin, people are screaming, praying, holding each other. Then, at the last possible second, Victor's aircraft banks hard right. It passes so close that the wake turbulence rocks the Boeing violently, but it passes. It doesn't turn back for another run. Angel 7, this is Viper 1. Victor's voice comes through one last time. You killed my brother. That will never change. But today I choose to be who he was, not what you made me. Consider this debt postponed, not forgiven. The hostile aircraft accelerates away, disappearing into the darkness before the F-16s can intercept. Within seconds, it's gone from radar, vanishing like it was never there. The second aircraft follows, leaving Flight 417 alone in the sky except for their saviors. American 417, this is Lieutenant Colonel Roberts. We have you bracketed. You're safe. We'll escort you to London. The cockpit erupts. Stevens actually collapses back into his jump seat, sobbing with relief. Mitchell lets out a breath he's been holding for what feels like hours. And Mara just stares at the empty radar screen where Victor's aircraft disappeared. She did it. They're safe. All 300 souls will make it home, but she knows this isn't over. Victor is still out there. He chose mercy today, but the debt, as he said, is postponed, not forgiven. Someday, somewhere, they'll meet again. Mitchell takes back control of the aircraft, his hands steady now that the immediate danger has passed. I don't have words for what that was. That was Tuesday in a fighter squadron, Mara says quietly, but there's no humor in it. She's exhausted, the adrenaline crash hitting her like a physical weight. Ma'am, Stevens says, having recovered somewhat, how did you... That maneuver with the landing gear, the defensive drop, they don't teach that in any flight school. They teach it in a different kind of school, she replies, the kind where failure isn't marked with a bad grade. On the emergency landing approach screen, Heathrow's information begins updating. Among the routine notifications, an advertisement for advanced hostile scenario training flashes briefly, a new program for commercial pilots to learn military evasion techniques, developed after increasing incidents of aggressive aircraft encounters. The irony that such training now exists, that what happened tonight might become a case study for future pilots, isn't lost on her. The intercom buzzes. Julia's voice. Captain, the passengers want to know if it's safe. Can I tell them? Tell them we're safe, Mitchell says. Tell them we have military escort to London. And tell them, he glances at Mara, tell them they have a hero to thank. Mara shakes her head. Don't tell them that. Tell them they saved themselves. They fought back. They refused to be victims. I just flew the plane. The rest of the flight passes in relative calm. The F-16s maintain perfect formation on either side, their presence a comfort to everyone who can see them through the windows. Roberts checks in every few minutes, his professional tone hiding what Mara knows is probably intense curiosity about how she ended up on a commercial flight dealing with a revenge-seeking ghost from her past. In the cabin, the mood is surreal. Passengers alternate between celebration and shock. The two would-be hijackers remain zip-tied and under guard, though they have gone completely passive, apparently abandoned by their employer. Harrison Walsh is buying drinks for everyone once they land. Assuming the bars are still open, he adds. Dorothy and Frank sit quietly, hands clasped, processing the fact that their anniversary trip almost became their last flight together. Jake Williams makes his way forward, using his cane for support. He stops at row 8, where Mara's empty seat still holds her green sweater. "That woman," he tells anyone listening, "that's what a warrior looks like. Not the muscles and the bravado you see in movies. Just someone who steps up when it matters, even when they'd rather be anywhere else." The teenage girl posts one final update. "We're safe. Military jets escorting us. The woman who saved us is a pilot, a real one. Like, she fought terrorists and saved 300 people, and she was just sitting in economy like a normal person. I can't even." 2 hours and 17 minutes after the first hostile contact, Flight 417 touches down at London Heathrow. The landing is smooth, Mitchell's hands steady and sure. Fire trucks and ambulances line the runway as a precaution, but they're not needed. Police vehicles wait to take the would-be hijackers into custody. And beyond the security perimeter, news vans are already gathering, somehow having gotten word that something extraordinary happened over the Atlantic. As the plane taxis to the gate, Mitchell makes an announcement. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain. We've arrived safely at London Heathrow. I want to thank you all for your courage during a difficult situation. You showed remarkable bravery and cooperation. And I want to especially thank the passenger who came forward when we needed help. Without her skills and experience, this story might have had a very different ending." Applause erupts through the cabin. It starts slowly, then builds to thunderous appreciation. People are crying, cheering, hugging strangers, but Mara remains in the cockpit, avoiding the attention. "You should go out there," Mitchell tells her. "They want to thank you." "They don't need to. This is what I trained for, what I was always trained for, even when I tried to pretend otherwise." The aircraft parks at the gate. The jet bridge connects. Police and security personnel board first, taking the hijackers into custody and beginning to process the scene. Then, slowly, passengers begin to disembark. They file past the cockpit, many pausing to look inside, to catch a glimpse of the woman who saved them. Some mouth, "Thank you," others just nod respectfully. The mother with the baby stops completely. "My daughter's name is Sarah," she says to Mara. "Sarah Michelle. She's 8 months old. Because of you, she'll see her first birthday. She'll take her first steps. She'll have a life." Tears stream down the woman's face. "How do I thank you for that?" "You don't," Mara says gently. "Just love her. Give her a good life. That's thanks enough." When the last passenger has disembarked, Mara finally stands. Her legs are shaky, the adrenaline fully crashed now, leaving her feeling hollow and exhausted. She pulls on the green sweater. It seems like a lifetime ago that she boarded this plane planning to sleep the whole way to London. Security wants to debrief her immediately, but Roberts intervenes. He's waiting on the jet bridge in full uniform, looking exactly as she remembers. Older, more gray in his hair, but still carrying himself with the confidence of a fighter pilot. "Angel 7, he says, then pulls her into a brief, fierce hug. "When I heard your authentication code, I thought it was a ghost." "Might as well have been," she replies. "I've been trying to be someone else for 3 years." "How'd that work out?" She gestures to the plane, the security vehicles, the chaos around them. "About as well as you would expect." They walk together through the terminal, Roberts running interference with the authorities, who want immediate statements. The other passengers have formed a kind of honor guard, lining the path to customs. They applaud as she passes. Some salute, military members and veterans recognizing one of their own. The teenage girl is there with her phone, but for once she's not recording, just watching with something approaching awe. Harrison Walsh steps forward. His expensive suit is ruined, his perfect hair disheveled, but his expression is humble. "I owe you an apology, and my life. Thank you." "You fought back," Mara tells him. "You tackled an armed hijacker. You're not the man you were when you boarded that plane either." Near customs, an older man in an expensive suit approaches. He shows credentials, British intelligence. "Ms. Dalton, we need to discuss Victor Klov. We have quite a file on him, and tonight's events—" "Can wait," Roberts interrupts. "Captain Dalton will be available for debrief tomorrow. Tonight, she's under U.S. Air Force protection." It's not strictly true. Mara's retired, technically a civilian. But nobody argues with the lieutenant colonel, flanked by 2 armed security forces airmen who materialized from somewhere. They escort her through customs, past the gathering media circus, to a secure area of the airport. Mara finds herself in a small, quiet room with Roberts and a secure phone. "You need to call anyone?" he asks. She thinks about it. 3 years ago, she would have called her husband, but that ended shortly after Yemen. Her parents are gone. Her military family scattered when she retired. She's been so focused on disappearing that she forgot to maintain connections to anyone. "No," she says quietly, "there's no one." Roberts looks at her with understanding. "There's always someone, Mara. The squadron still talks about you. Your trainees, the ones from your instructor days, they still fly by your standards. I killed an innocent man, Sam. You followed orders based on bad intelligence. The review board cleared you. The review board wasn't in that cockpit. They didn't push the button." She stares at her hands. "His name was Alexei. He had a daughter. He was trying to broker peace, and I killed him. And tonight you saved 300 people. That has to count for something." Before she can respond, the secure phone rings. Roberts answers, listens, then hands it to her. "It's for you, Langley." She takes the phone, already knowing what this is about. The voice on the other end is professional, calm, and familiar. Deputy Director James Crawford, her former handler from her brief stint working with the agency. "Captain Dalton, we've been monitoring the situation. Impressive work." "What do you want, Crawford?" "Victor Klov. He's more than just a grieving brother. He's been running operations across Eastern Europe, building a network. Tonight was personal for him, but he's a genuine threat to regional stability. Not my problem anymore." "Isn't it? He knows you're alive. He knows you're reachable. Do you think he'll stop? Do you think you can go back to hiding?" She doesn't answer because they both know the truth. Tonight changed everything. Her cover is blown. Media will have her name within hours. Victor is still out there, and now he knows exactly how to find her. "We're offering you reinstatement," Crawford continues. "Full military rank restored. Assignment to a joint task force targeting Klov's network. Your experience, your history with him, it makes you uniquely qualified. I walked away for a reason. And that reason just tried to kill 300 people to get to you. Walking away isn't an option anymore, Captain. The question is whether you face this alone or with resources." She looks at Roberts, who nods slightly. He knows what she's thinking, what choice she's facing. Once a warrior, always a warrior. You can change your clothes, change your location, change your name, but you can't change your nature. "I need time to think," she tells Crawford. "You have 24 hours. There's a secure facility in London. Roberts will take you there. Rest, think, decide. But understand, Captain, whether you accept our offer or not, your war isn't over. It just took a 3-year pause." The call ends. Mara hands the phone back to Roberts, who sets it aside without comment. "There's a car waiting," he says gently. "Safe house in Kensington. Shower, food, sleep. Everything else can wait." As they leave the airport through a secure exit, avoiding the media circus at the main terminal, Mara catches a glimpse of the passengers from Flight 4 being reunited with loved ones. Dorothy and Frank embracing family members who thought they might never see them again. The mother with baby Sarah crying with relief as her husband holds them both. The teenage girl showing her parents her live stream videos, all of them crying and laughing simultaneously. These people will go home. They'll sleep in their own beds, return to their lives, tell this story at dinner parties for years to come. They'll check flight manifests nervously for a while, maybe avoid flying for a few months, but eventually the fear will fade and life will return to normal. For them, tonight was an aberration, a brief brush with danger that ended well. For Mara, tonight was a reminder that some wars don't end just because you stop fighting them. 6 months later, Captain Mara Dalton stands in the briefing room of a classified facility in Virginia. She wears a flight suit again, the wings on her chest polished and proper. Around her, a joint task force of the best pilots, intelligence officers, and special operators the free world has to offer. On the screen behind her, Victor Klov's network sprawls across a map of Eastern Europe and the Middle East. Arms dealing, human trafficking, cyber warfare. He's built an empire on the skills he learned in the Russian Special Forces, funded by people who profit from chaos. He's escalated 3 times in the past month, she tells the room, each operation more aggressive than the last. He's not hiding anymore. After Flight 417, he decided that staying in the shadows wasn't working. "What's his endgame?" asked Major Jennifer Chen, one of the task force pilots. "Originally it was me, personal revenge for his brother. But something changed that night over the Atlantic. When he chose not to ram our aircraft, When he let those civilians live, he made a decision about what kind of man he wanted to be. Mara pauses. Now he's trying to honor his brother's memory differently. He's targeting peace negotiations, the same kind his brother died trying to protect. He's become the chaos his brother fought against. And you think you can reach him? This from Colonel Morrison, the task force commander. I think I'm the only one who can. He sees me as the architect of his loss, but I also understand his pain. I carry the same guilt he does, just from the other side. She looks at the assembled team, these warriors who have chosen to stand between chaos and civilization. 6 months ago, she was trying to sleep in seat 8A of a commercial flight, pretending to be someone ordinary. Now she's back where she belongs, though the weight of it feels heavier than before. We launch tomorrow, Morrison announces. Operation Ghost Hawk. Appropriate, considering. As the briefing breaks up, Roberts approaches her. You sure about this? Leading the flight element against Victor? I owe it to Alexei, she says. I took his life. The least I can do is stop his brother from dishonoring his memory. And if Victor doesn't want to be stopped, she thinks about that night over the Atlantic, about 300 people who lived because one man chose mercy over revenge. Then we do what warriors do. We fight. We protect those who can't protect themselves. We stand between the darkness and the light. That night, in her quarters on base, Mara sits at her desk writing a letter she may never send. It's addressed to Victor Klov, care of a dozen intelligence agencies who might eventually track him down. Victor, she writes, I know you'll probably never read this, but I need to write it. Your brother Alexei was a good man trying to do good work. I was a soldier following orders that turned out to be wrong. Neither of us can change what happened that night in Yemen, but we can choose what happens next. You showed mercy over the Atlantic. You chose to be the man your brother was rather than the monster grief wanted you to become. That choice matters. It's the same choice I face every day. Whether to let guilt destroy me or use it to be better. I'm coming for your network, but not for you. Not if you'll stop. Not if you'll honor Alexei's memory by choosing peace over war. The world has enough warriors. Maybe it's time for both of us to be something else. But if you force my hand, if you threaten innocent people again, I'll do what I was trained to do. Not with hatred, not for revenge, but because some people stand between the darkness and the light. Your brother understood that. I hope you do too. The woman from seat 8A. She seals the letter, knowing it will probably never reach him. Tomorrow, she'll climb into a fighter jet for the first time in 3 years. Tomorrow, the war resumes. But tonight, she allows herself to remember those 300 people on Flight 417, alive because 2 enemies chose mercy over vengeance, if only for a moment. Her phone buzzes with a message from an unknown number. She opens it to find a picture, the teenage girl from the flight, now at university, standing in front of a Royal Air Force recruitment office. The message reads, "Because of you, I know what I want to be. Thank you, Captain Dalton." Mara smiles, the first genuine smile in months. This is why warriors fight, not for glory or revenge, but so that teenage girls can grow up to become pilots, so that couples can celebrate anniversaries, so that babies named Sarah can take their first steps. She turns off the light and lies down, still in her flight suit. Tomorrow will bring its own challenges, its own choices between darkness and light. But tonight, she sleeps peacefully. No nightmares, no guilt, just the quiet satisfaction of a warrior who remembered her purpose. Because sometimes heroes aren't the ones seeking glory or recognition. Sometimes they're just tired people in economy seats trying to sleep through a flight who stand up when standing up is the only option left. Sometimes heroes are just ordinary people who refuse to let extraordinary circumstances define the limits of their courage. And sometimes, just sometimes, even enemies can choose to be better than their worst moments. The mission continues. The war goes on. But for 300 people who boarded Flight 417 expecting nothing more than a routine trip to London, life goes on too. And in the end, that's the only victory that really matters.
Thank you for watching REV Story. This channel shares stories of simple women who are often underestimated. So, if you enjoy quiet strength and powerful story, please take a moment to like, subscribe, and stay with us. See you soon in the next story.